You have a car, you have a DJI Neo 2, but car tracking isn't available by default. Here's how you actually unlock it. Alright, car tracking on a DJI Neo 2 raises a lot of questions. Some people think the feature is missing, others think it's broken. In this video I'll explain how car tracking on Neo 2 actually works, why it's unavailable for many pilots, and how to set it up correctly step by step. Before we get into tracking modes or settings, we need to talk about the prerequisites. Car tracking on DJI Neo 2 is not something you can enable in every setup. It only becomes available once a few conditions are met. The first prerequisite is the digital transceiver. This is what allows the Neo 2 to connect to a remote controller at all. The transceiver plugs into the USB port at the rear of the drone and is then secured with 4 small screws. It's a simple installation, but without this module, a controller connection is not possible. You'll either get the digital transceiver as part of the Fly More bundle, or you'll need to buy it separately. The second prerequisite is a compatible remote controller. The DJI Neo 2 works with either the DJI RC-N3 or the DJI RC2. Using a controller doesn't just unlock car tracking, it also changes how the drone communicates. Instead of a short-range Wi-Fi connection, the Neo 2 switches to DJI's O4 Plus transmission system, which gives you a much more stable link and significantly more range. And why this stable connection really matters, you'll see in the next chapters. Only when these prerequisites are met, digital transceiver plus a compatible controller, does car tracking become available. First, we position the Neo 2 so that our car is nicely centered on the screen. Next, we draw a selection box over the vehicle on the display. In my case, I drag from the top left to the bottom right. Once I release my finger, the software recognizes the car, creates a green rectangle around it and shows a small car icon underneath. Before we continue, there's an alternative way to select the target. On the right side of the screen, you can see 2 brackets with a small dot in between. If you tap this icon, the system automatically scans the scene for trackable vehicles and marks them with a small green plus. Selecting one of these targets brings you to the exact same state as if you had drawn the selection box manually. Now let's take a closer look at the symbols that appear. In the top left corner of the selection box you can see a small green circle with an X inside. Right next to it is the RC icon with a C2 label. This means you can deselect the vehicle either by tapping the X on the screen or by pressing C2 on the remote controller. Along the bottom of the screen 3 new buttons appear: ActiveTrack, Spotlight and POI. Spotlight is currently highlighted, which simply means the drone is locked onto the vehicle and keeps it in focus. Above the ActiveTrack button you can again see the RC icon, this time labeled C1. To activate ActiveTrack you either tap the ActiveTrack button on the screen or press C1 on the remote controller. Once ActiveTrack is selected, the interface changes. ActiveTrack is now highlighted in yellow, a large red stop button appears to immediately abort the flight in an emergency. You will also notice a radar appearing on the left side of the screen. We will take a closer look at that radar in the next chapter. While we are driving, the Neo 2 is actively tracking the car. Now let's take a look at how we can change the camera angle and the drone's position during the flight. In the lower left corner on the screen, you see what DJI calls the trace wheel, sometimes also referred to as the radar. This wheel is your main tool for repositioning the Neo 2 while tracking. You'll notice 2 circles, an inner circle and an outer circle, each with a different radius. When the Neo 2 flies in the inner circle, it stays close to the subject. In the outer circle, it keeps a larger distance from the car. For orientation, you see the label F for front, B for back, L for left and R for right, placed between the circles. Each circle has 8 positions marked as small dots, including the diagonal angles in between. You can tap any of these points and the Neo 2 will automatically move to that position while keeping the car perfectly framed. The expected flight path is shown live as a green line, so you always know where the drone is heading. This works very reliably. On top of that, you're not limited to the touchscreen. You can also use the controller's joysticks to manually adjust the tracking direction, the height, and the distance to the car. These manual inputs are reflected directly in the trace wheel, so you can always see the drone's current position. Combining the trace wheel with the joystick controls gives you a lot of creative freedom and allows for very dynamic and exciting shots. Now let's take a look at the tracking setting the Neo 2 offers. To access them, simply tap the setting icon located just above the trace wheel on the left side of the screen. This opens a menu overlay. At the very top, you'll see that vehicle is selected. We'll also briefly look at the person setting in a moment. First, there's a short explanation of the trace wheel and the inner and outer circle, just for reference. The more interesting part starts below. The first set of sliders allow you to adjust the radius of both the inner and the outer circle. The right slider controls the outer circle radius, which can be increased up to a maximum of 50 meters. The left slider controls the flight radius when the drone is flying in the inner circle. The minimum distance to the subject here is 4 meters. If we scroll further down, we'll find inner height. This setting defines the flight altitude when the Neo 2 is operating in the inner circle. The minimum height is half a meter depending on ground conditions. The drone will not intentionally descend into the ground or crash. The maximum height is 50 meters. Below that is outer height, which defines the altitude when the Neo 2 is flying in the outer circle. Here, the same limit applies, from half a meter up to 50 meters. And that's essentially all the available tracking settings. At the very bottom, you'll also find a reset button in case you want to restore all settings back to their default values. For completeness, let's scroll back to the top and switch from vehicle to person. Here, you'll first see an additional selection, allowing you to choose between standard, person tracking, cycling, or skiing. Apart from that, the settings work the same way. You can adjust the circle radii and the corresponding height limits. The maximum values you can set differ slightly compared to the vehicle tracking mode. Take some time to experiment with these settings and define the distance and heights that best fit your shooting style. Let's talk about sensing and real-world limitations, because this is where expectations need to be realistic. Whenever the Neo 2 is in focus track, obstacle avoidance is always active. It automatically switches to bypass mode, and this behavior cannot be changed or disabled. In general, the system works reliably and does a solid job at avoiding obstacles. One important strength of the tracking software is that it can keep following the car even when the subject is partially obscured. For example, if the vehicle briefly passes behind trees, poles or other objects, the Neo 2 is usually able to maintain tracking and recover the target once it becomes visible again. This works surprisingly well and shows that the tracking logic is not purely reactive but predictive to a certain degree. However, this does not mean the system is foolproof. You should never rely on obstacle avoidance or subject tracking 100%. The responsibility always remains with you as a pilot. For that reason, it's strongly recommended to use car tracking only in areas with as few obstacles as possible. Obstacle avoidance should be treated as a safety net, not as a guarantee. Lighting conditions also play an important role. Poor or difficult lighting, such as low sun angles, strong backlight, shadows, or overcast conditions, can negatively affect both tracking performance and the visual sensors used for obstacle avoidance. As lightning gets worse, the system becomes less predictable, especially at higher speeds. Speed itself is another key limitation. The maximum tracking speed of the Neo 2 is around 43 km per hour. The closer the drone operates to this limit, the harder it becomes for the system to react smoothly. At high speeds, battery consumption increases significantly as well. Sustained fast tracking will drain the battery much quicker than slower, more controlled shots. Speed also affects positioning. If the Neo 2 is already flying near its maximum speed, it won't reliably switch between tracking positions using the trace wheel, simply because it lacks performance headroom. Environmental factors like headwind further amplify all of these limitations. Even moderate wind can reduce effective speed and stability, making tracking less consistent. If the vehicle accelerates too much and the distance between the car and the drone becomes too large, current EU regulations come into play. In that case, the Neo 2 will abort tracking and hover at its current position instead of attempting to catch up. Finally, it's important to understand that you cannot actively pilot the drone while driving. That's why car tracking always requires a second person. You need a dedicated spotter and remote controller operator who maintains visual line of sight and can intervene immediately if a situation becomes critical.
Alright folks, that's it for the DJI Neo 2 car tracking guide. I hope this was useful and gave you a clear understanding of how car tracking actually works and why it's not available in every setup. If you found this helpful, smash that like button, and if you enjoyed this kind of tutorial drone content, subscribe to the channel and drop me a comment below. Now close YouTube for today, grab your drone and go fly it yourself. Watching videos is fine, but real experience is what actually makes the difference. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day. See you. Bye bye.